I'm Nick. Welcome to Get Out and Wrench. Today, we're going to be working on this Goodwrench 350. I was just informed that my boat needs an engine because it has no compression on cylinder 1 and it has a small block Chevy in it. So I picked up this engine for $200. It doesn't turn over because it has some rust in the cylinders, and I think it'll be perfect for my boat. So we're going to tear it down. I'm going to hone the cylinders, clean everything up. I have a marine cam on the way. I got my brass freeze plugs that I'm going to put in, and we're going to clean this engine all up and make it look good as new and put it in the boat. Those aluminum cylinder heads up there on the shelf are the heads that I bought at swap meet a while ago. If you check in my earlier videos, I go over all those. They're basically L98 or ZZ4 heads. So they're going to end up on here. I might use this intake manifold or the one that's currently on the boat engine, but the boat engine carb is going to go on here and all the accessories. So I'm going to start tearing this down. I've only got a week to get it built and to the marina so they can put the engine in for me, because I don't have time or a gantry crane, so we'll let them do that. But let's get tearing this down and check back with you once I get the heads off, and we'll see what sort of cylinder conditions we're working with. Okay, I got the intake manifold off. There's a couple leaves in here, but it was just sitting on top of there. I got a little bit of rust down here. Not so much there or here or over here, but I am a little concerned about that. I may have to get a hone for that and clean that up a little bit, but so far nothing majorly terrible. I did pull the intake manifold off before I bought the block just to check in here and make sure everything wasn't all cracked and whatnot, because I've seen them crack in here. All right, I'm ready to pull the heads off. I got all bolts out. I just cracked them loose with the pry bar. I'm gonna take this one off first because I think that this side is worse. So hopefully it doesn't fall off onto the ground. But I'll take this one off. I'm just gonna flip it over. Bolt out the rest of the way. Alright, well, this one's not that bad. So, maybe cylinder 7. There's a little bit of stuff in it, but it's not terrible. The heads look like they're decent. Well, this one does at least. This is the one that I'm concerned about because this is really rusty looking. So, hopefully we don't have a completely rotted out block, and I'll just have to use that L98 that I have hanging on my chain hoist over here. Ooh, that's not good. So this side, as you can see, is very rusty. Might have a tough time with this one. Well, let's get you in here to look at it so you can see what we're working with. And get you in over here so you can see what we're working with. So that's pretty nasty. You got 3 cylinders. Have a lot of stuff in them. I'll get my vacuum out and I'll spray them down and see if I can get this engine to rotate over, which hopefully I can, because if I can't, then I'm going to be using that engine, which I don't really want to use that engine, but if I have to, I will. All right, so I'm going to spray some of this liquid wrench penetrating oil in there. Figured get out and wrench, use liquid wrench. It only makes sense. Maybe they'll sponsor me. I doubt it. Spray this in there. Make sure to get it all nice in there and good. And do the same thing on this side. I already vacuumed them out, which you saw in the time-lapse video. You just spray all this stuff in here just to help. Alright. Let that sit for a few minutes. I'll get the rest of my tools set up. I do have this socket that I bought a long time ago. It goes right on the end of the crank for the small block Chevy. It's got this notch, and the crankshaft has that same keyway, and it just slides right on there. You know, you can do it on all of them. It's great for turning the engine over. So I'm going to get a big 1/2-inch ratchet. And we'll see what happens. Oh, she's stuck. All right, that might not work. This may be a lost cause. But let this soak for a little bit. I'm going to continue cleaning up the block. I'll pull my lifters out, and maybe the liquid wrench will do some work while we wait. Also, I'm trying to push through all that, so maybe I'll get this Scotch-Brite in here. See if I can clean these. There's a lot of junk in here. It's unfortunate because this was a good running engine before somebody let it sit outside with no carburetor on it. So I got a 3-foot breaker bar on here. I'm putting all my weight on it. I'm actually concerned. I'm actually twisting the stand, and I'm concerned that I'm going to flip the stand over. Okay, I'm going to pull the oil pan off, and I'm going to try and take the pistons out one at a time and see if I can get this cleaned up. And then I think I have a 3-stone hone that I can get in there and get this heavy stuff off of here, and then get in there with the ball hone and clean it up nice, and we'll see how they come out. If they don't come out that good, we're gonna abandon this block for now, and we'll move on to our L98 block up here. If you can see that. This L98 block here. That I was saving for something else, but if I gotta switch to that, it's the same block as this. This is, one piece rear main seal, and factory roller setup can go right in this. That's the same block, one piece rear main seal, factory roller setup can go in it. So the parts I ordered will fit in either one of these blocks. I would have preferred to use this one, but if I can't, it'll have to be that one. All right, I got the oil pan off. In here doesn't look too bad. A little bit of goo in there, but that's fine. That's typical. It does have a one-piece gasket, which is good. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's a one-piece. It's a one-piece rear main seal. A 2-bolt main block, which is what it is. I kind of wish it was a 4-bolt main block. But I'm going to use this. That L98 block up there is also a 2-bolt main block. The only 4-bolt main block I have is that 355 back there. I don't know if you can see it. It's in the corner, the orange one. But that is a one-piece rear main seal engine and doesn't have the accommodations for the factory roller cam. So I'm going to pull these out, whichever ones I can. Hopefully I can get this one and that one, these two, and then maybe we should be able to turn it over, and I'll pull the main caps off and we'll check the bearings out and see how those look. Okay, we got the pistons out. That was a struggle, especially with number 6. You can see in here. I'll wipe it down and see how that looks. I haven't looked at this yet. It's pretty pitted, so I'm probably going to go with the other block just for time's sake, but at least I got this one torn down and can get it to the machine shop at some point. Maybe we'll build it for something else pretty cool. Okay, I got this other block mounted on my engine stand here. Took the other block off. That's gonna have to go to the machine shop and use that for something else. I'm gonna end up using this. I did put bearings in it probably about 12 years ago plus. So I'm just pulling some of these caps off just to check the bearings. Like this one got a little bit of a line in it, but it's fine. This engine ran maybe for a total of 10 minutes before I pulled it out of my car and went with the stroker that I put in it. So I'm just going to double check all this, make sure all my torque specs are right. Maybe I'll pull a couple of these caps off and just check those out and retorque everything down. Make sure we're good to go. And the other thing, I'm going to add some assembly lube on here. I'm going to add some assembly lube on here so that it'll be good and fresh for startup. My camshaft should be here today, so I can hopefully get that installed and we'll be good to go. Okay, so as you can see, we're taking the crankshaft out of this engine. I was checking the torque specs on my connecting rods. Checking the torque on my connecting rods, and I found that some of them were scored. And I was looking at the crank, and it's got some nicks in it. So I decided I'm going to take the crank out and polish it, and I ordered new rod bearings. But also, when I pulled the pistons out, these pistons have newer rings on them, so they're good. But I noticed one of them is stuck, and piston's cracked, and this stud way longer. Why is that one way longer than the rest of them? Something's weird with this piston specifically. So I'm taking the best piston out of the engine that I disassembled yesterday. I'm going to take piston rings off of this piston because they're still new. And they're going to go on this piston. It's a little dirty, but I'm going to soak it in some carb cleaner. I have a gallon of carb cleaner. I'm just going to dunk it in there and let it soak overnight with the rings off, and then I'll clean it tomorrow, and hopefully it looks good, because this has got to get done. I don't have time to order pistons, so that's the route that I'm choosing to go. The main bearings look okay. I gotta check my end play, my crankshaft end play. Once I get everything fixed, I may have to adjust that a little bit, but I'll worry about that when I get there. My camshaft and my lifters and my valves and all the other stuff was supposed to show up today, and it hasn't shown up yet. So I'm really hoping it gets here tomorrow. I'd really like to get this engine back together and ready to load in my truck by Friday. So hopefully everything gets here tomorrow and I can get working on that. Also, since I have the pistons out of this block, I'm going to go ahead and dingle ball hone it, because I don't remember if I dingle ball honed it the first time I had it apart, because that was about 12 or 15 years ago. And honestly, this is one of the first engines that I rebuilt, so I may have used a 3-stone hone on it, and I'd like to just get some good cross-hatching in it. So here's our cylinders. Most of that I'll just wipe out. But basically, I'm going to go in here with my hone, just get a fresh crosshatch on it, take the glaze off, and then hopefully with the new rings it'll seal good, and I'll be able to get this engine running, and it'll be good to go for a while. Basically, what I'm going to do is I have some engine oil here. This is synthetic 540 mostly. But it'll lubricate all the cylinders up real good. Lubricate them up. So I have that cardboard there. I'll take one of my many extra rags I have laying. Wipe my hand off. I have my flex hone. This is a 4 1/8 flex hone. So they say to go a little bit bigger than your piston bore. I bought this when I was doing 383, which is 4030, but it works fine for the 4-inch block, the 4-inch bore as well. So you always want to start outside the hole and just bring it up to about 1,000 RPM and just in and out and go through and do all of them. So I'll do this one. I'll do number 7 here. All right, so here we go. These are cylinders after about 30 seconds on each one. I don't know if you can see the cross hatching in there. And then of course I'm going to clean up the top. But yeah, you can see cross hatching in there good. I've got everything pretty much cleaned up on the block. I went over all the edges, like all the sealing surfaces, and cleaned them. I blew out as much of the stuff out of the coolant passengers as I could, and I just gave it a good clean with some brake cleaner and got all the grease and stuff off of it. So I'm gonna give her a good fog down with this just to brighten it up and make it look fresh. So we'll have a nice looking engine to put in our boat. We'll let that dry overnight, and then tomorrow when I come out here, I'll clean it all up again. Hopefully all my parts are here tomorrow, and I can start assembling stuff. Otherwise, I mean, I can start assembling the heads partially. I have some of the parts for that. So we'll get back on this tomorrow and try and get the small block Chevy built before the end of the week. Right now I'm going to check the crankshaft end play, and according to my book here, How to Build Your Small Block Chevy, we should be between 2 and 7 thousandths. There's 2 ways to check that. You can use feeler gauges, which I'm going to do right now. And we'll start with, take your pry bar, we'll push it all the way forward. And we'll just start at the big size that is recommended. We'll start at 7 thousandths. So we're gonna check at 7 thousandths. That seems to be pretty good there. Then we'll go to 8 thousandths. We'll see how that looks. So I'll say we're a little out of spec on that. So let's push it the other way. And see where we're at there. Same thing, check the 7 thousandths on the back side. We'll go with 8 thousandths. The 8 thousandths doesn't fit there. Just a little bit there. So we're like right on the cusp of maximum clearance, but that's the bearing that we got, so there's not really anything I can do about that. The other way to check your clearance is to use a dial indicator, which clearly you can see I haven't opened yet. And I've owned this specific gauge setup for probably 15 years. I don't know why I haven't opened it yet. Probably because I used to use the ones that work all the time, and I never needed to use my own. So we're gonna put the top caps on, and then I'll check it with the dial indicator once the top caps are on. All right, so I got all of my main caps torqued down, and I have my dial indicator set up. I'm not using feeler gauges this time because you can't get them in here to check the top, or well, the bottom of your rear bearing. So I'm using my dial indicator, which I have preloaded, and I have that zeroed out. So we're going to take our pry bar, and we're going to push this all the way forward, which it already is, and then we'll push it all the way back. And we're getting about it looks like we're getting about 5 thousandths of movement. Like if I lean on it, you get about 8, but if you push it forward and back, we're getting like 4 to 5 thousandths. It looks like I can feel it moving a little bit. So here, I'll zero this here. That's showing me 4. And then if I move it back, it's sitting at 0. So that's within the spec that I have in my book here. It's also within the spec that I found online. So we should be good to go with that, which I'm happy about. Next, I'm going to put the bearings in the connecting rods and put the pistons in. I'll swap over those piston rings onto the new piston, and we should be able to continue getting this bottom end put together. All right, so I got my new bearings installed. I checked the ring gap on my top and bottom rings. It's within spec, so I have a Mercruiser book here because this is going to be going in a boat. And the Mercruiser spec is for the top ring 0.010 to 0.020, and the second ring 0.010 to 0.025. So my top ring is about 0.015, so 15 thousandths. My second ring is basically the same, and that falls within my spec for that. So I'm not worried about that. The one thing you do want to note is when you're putting your piston rings on, is you don't want your ring gaps lined up like that. So you just want to orient them so they're, usually I do 1, 2, 3. So I'll do it like a peace sign. 1, 2, 3. So I'll put 1 here, 2 over here, and then the oil ring gap, I'll put the main one in the middle on the back, and then one of them I'll put off to the side of that, and the other one I'll put to the other side. So basically I have my top ring, my second ring, my oil ring. You could probably turn these a little more. The top ring, second ring, oil ring, spring, and then the oil ring scraper, and the other oil ring scraper. Top ring, second ring, oil ring spring, top oil ring scraper, bottom oil ring scraper. So they're offset. That's basically what you want. And then the other thing you want to do, you want to take cap off. I have this Permatex Ultra Slick Semi Lube. I like this stuff. It's sticky, the red sticky stuff. There's another brand. It's called I forget what the name of it is, but I have another bottle of it. I think it's this stuff, the red sticky Permatex stuff. The blob of it on there. Spread that. Wipe my finger off. Take your caps. They use 5/16 vacuum caps, fit over these studs pretty good. Because you don't want to gouge your crankshaft up when you put your piston in. I'll lay that down. I don't know what happened. Oh. So I have a little bit of oil here. Just want to lube the cylinder up a little bit. I've heard multiple different ways of installing pistons. Some people say don't use any lube. I was always taught to use engine oil. So let me know down in the comments what you do. If you use engine oil or something else, WD-40 or whatnot, or if you just put it in dry, let me know. Because I don't know what the correct answer is. I've been told so many different things, but I was originally taught always use engine oil. And you want to make sure your mark is pointing forward. And then for your cylinder 1, your shoulder should be towards the front because that's your most forward. So your shoulder should be towards the front. And I like this piston ring compressor. This is a Blue Point one. You don't have to use this one. You can use whatever you got. Those little twisty spring ones are okay. I prefer this one, or they make the solid ones too. And then you just take your handle of your hammer. And then you want to make sure that you're lined up there. And boom, there's one piston in. And I'll put cylinder 2 in now while I'm here. Keep my caps separated. Put that on there. Same thing. You'll make sure your ring gaps are spread evenly. Bottom one over here. The oil ring scraper one isn't as important to be spread as evenly, but you want to get them as close as you can. All right, and the same thing. Take my oil can, put some oil in here. Maybe a little more. Hand off. Another thing to note with this piston ring compressor is it has a top and a bottom. I'll show you in a minute. And there. See, I almost did it. You want your piston to point forward. So take that back out. Turn this around. Because you want your shoulder on cylinder 2 to face towards the back. So you want to always pay attention to that. Take your hammer. I always like to tap around the sides to make sure that my ring compressor is seated against the block, and then you don't need to, hulk it in there. You just tap it in nice and gently. What else did I forget? What else did I forget? Forgot the assembly lube. Got it sitting right here. I didn't even put it on. It's late. So we're going to put it on. Put it on my hand. Rub it on. I'll put some on the journal. Push this down. Pulled these off. It was actually easier to pull them off with the tips cut off because they didn't create a suction. Before you flip your engine over, make sure you take all your stuff off the top. Take your ratchet off your crankshaft. Okay. We got our rods pushed on there. And you got to remember that they're opposite. So now this is cylinder 1 and this is cylinder 2. So I'm going to take my cylinder 1 cap, put my cam or my assembly lube on here. You want to make sure that your tangs are on the same side and your shoulder is towards the crank and not the other connecting rod. Let's take a little rubber mallet, tap that together. And we take our bolts. Take our other one. Assembly lube, you can rub a little bit on there. Just because I missed the top on that, I'll put a little bit on there too. Same thing. Tangs, tang, tang, shoulder, shoulder. Okay, that. Now, for my connecting rod bolts, let's see. Connecting rod caps, small block V8, 45 foot-pounds. That's from the Mercruiser book. The How to Rebuild Your Small Block Chevy book also gives you the same torque spec. Where was that? Uh, right here. After putting each rod cap with its securing nut, torque the nuts 30 to 35 foot-pounds for the 11/32 diameter bolts and 40 to 45 foot-pounds for 3/8 inch bolts. So we have 3/8 inch bolts, so 45 foot-pounds it is. My 9/16 socket, torque wrench, five, five. So I always like to double check the torque. Okay, so there's our first two pistons, and since we're doing this in our sequence, don't have to mark them because I'll know that these two are torqued, but for peace of mind, just in case, I decide to go to bed soon, I'll know where I stopped. So I also I like these Milwaukee paint pens. They're pretty good. So like this, that needs to be clean. But like, I could put a dot on here, show that I torqued that, and put a dot on here. I torqued that one. This is mostly for my reference. Nobody else is going to be inside this engine unless I sell the boat. So, but even if that's the case, and then I can just put a dot on that one and that one to indicate that I torqued them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I already torqued those earlier. Then I can look at it and say, oh, I torqued these already. Okay, that's on top of them. It's easy. You put the dots on top. The lines on the bottom are more what you do, so you know that nobody messes with it, but nobody's going to be touching that but me. All right. Now we'll move on to our next one. Rotate there, and we can put these two in. You can go in order, but I just like to, whichever one comes up to the top next, I'll move on to that one. So I'll do 5 and 6, then I'll do 7 and 8, and then 2 and 4. But we'll time lapse all this just so you're not sitting here watching for an hour. So I ran into a problem. This piston came out of this engine in cylinder 8. The issue that I have, though, is this piston is oriented as an odd piston because the shoulder and the forward arrow are pointing the same direction. Being that these have valve reliefs on both sides, I don't know how important that is, but I don't want to take any chances because I don't feel like having to take this engine back out of my boat. So my only solution right now is to take the cylinder 8 piston out of the engine I took apart the other day. Same thing that I did with the cylinder 5 piston. I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to swap the rings from that piston to this one, swap my bearings over, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to get on doing that. Actually, I'm going to finish putting the rest of the pistons in, make sure I don't have any other problems, and I'll let this one soak while I'm doing that. This is the cam that I got. It's the Comp Cams 08417-8. It's the Extreme Marine cam. The operating range is 1200 to 5500, I believe. It has a 495 intake lift and 503 exhaust lift, and the 218 duration at 50 thousandths on the intake, and a 224 duration at 50 thousandths on the exhaust, and a 112 lobe separation angle. I'm exhausted. So this should make good power. And the heads I'm running are the L98/ZZ4 heads that I bought at Swap Meet last year, I think it was. They have the 58cc chamber and 194 150 valves. So they should make, this engine should make around 300 horse. I'm not going to dyno it or anything. I know it's definitely going to make more than what's in the boat right now, and it should run really good. So I'm excited to get this thing all together. I have roller rockers also that I'm going to put on, and hopefully I don't have to order push rods. I got stock size push rods for an L98 block. They're 7.2, I think. I can double check that. So I'm hoping that I don't have to order new push rods, because that'll really throw a wrench into my schedule here. Another thing, one thing to note is if you're running a factory roller block with a cam set up for a factory roller, you have to make sure you get the right timing set. Because this cam has a smaller bolt pattern than a flat tappet cam has. So you gotta make sure you get the right timing set. The timing set won't be here till tomorrow, so I'll show you that when I get to that. But basically, when I put cams in, where's my bolt? I lost my bolt. I have a big giant bolt that I use right here. Big giant bolt that I use, screwed in the end. That way you have a little handle. Don't go buy the tool. It's a waste of money. You can just go buy a long bolt. And if you really want, you can put a piece of fuel line over it, give you a little bit better grip. I just take my stuff here, rub that all on there nice and good. I like to have a lot on there when I'm putting cams in. I mean, this is a roller cam, so I'm not as concerned about wiping it out, but you still don't want to take any chances. Make sure your hands are clean. And then we'll put it in one bearing at a time, and don't gouge up the bearings. When you get to the next one, you can lube it up again. And same thing. Next one. The other important thing to note is your factory roller cam may not have a fuel pump lobe on it. So if you're trying to do a mechanical fuel pump on a roller block, you may not have the fuel pump lobe on your factory cam. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to put a roller block in a car that doesn't have an electric fuel pump. All right, so that's in there. You want to make sure that it spins all the way around. It just does. And then, so the lifters I got, they're the Summit Racing HT21416 lifter set. They're roller lifters for this engine. They're just like stock replacements, so that's what I needed. Put them in. I'm also waiting on the spider and the retainers for these. Those I think should be here tomorrow. I gotta check my tracking. All right, so those are all in. Happy about that. I guess I'm at a good stopping point for now. really late. I gotta go to bed. So I'll get back on this tomorrow. Try and get as far as I can. Hopefully I can get this thing done by Friday. It's currently Wednesday, Thursday. Hopefully I can have this done by the end of the day, Friday, and load it in my truck. And then I can get it over to the marina, and I'll be able to not have to worry about it while it's getting put in. Okay, so I have my cylinder head here. This is the passenger side that I'm going to use. The other one I already have ready to go on the driver's side. Basically, I got my new valves. These are 194 150s. So the exhausts are 150s, intakes are 194s. Part number for the exhaust valves, right? Part number for the intake valves are these Summit V8000-8. And the part number for the exhaust valves is the V8008-8. These heads are stock L98 ZZ4 heads, so they got stock valve sizes in them. This head's been sitting for a little while, so there's a little bit of surface rust on some stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my brass wire brush and just run it through all the valve guides just to clean them up a little bit. Just to get most of the stuff off of it. Nothing major, but okay. So that's pretty good. It just cleans up whatever surface rust might be in there. I'm going to go ahead and spray them down a little bit with some brake cleaner. Just get whatever I can out of there. All right, so those are all good, cleaned up. Take our valves. The valves have the shipping grease on them, I guess you call it. And you just clean them up. I'm just going to make sure that they slide in nice. Make sure they don't move around. All right, so all these are in here good. They all fit nice. I don't move around. I don't feel any play in them. So that's good. I'm going to lap the valves in, and I just want to clean up the seats. So I want to make them have a matching surface on each one. So there's two ways you could do that. I like this way with the valve lapping tool. Goes on the back of the valve, or goes on the face of the valve. It suction cups to it. This one might not suction cup anymore because it's old, but seems like it's working. Nope. We get our valve lapping compound. I need a pick. They sell the Permatex valve lapping compound. It comes in this tube if you're not doing a lot of it, or if you're doing a bunch of it, you get a tub of it. But I don't do this too often, so I only have a small container of it. And you just want to get it right on the face of the valve here, right where it's going to contact the valve seat. And then you just want to, you'll feel it, it'll smooth out. You pull the valve and turn it a little bit, and it smooths out. You hear how change sound. You pull it out again and twist it. And that usually means that it's pretty good. So we'll pull this one out. You want to do your best not to get any valve grinding compound on the stem. Clean that off here. As you can see, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that in the video. See how it's gray around the edge there? That means that it ground this seat to match that seat. I'll clean this one off and it should look the same. Same gray color in here. So that's what you want. So when this sits, it has a nice smooth surface that is smooth to this surface. So you want to mark which one it goes in also. I got that nice and clean. A little brake clean on my rag here. And get all your valve grinding compound out of there. Right, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these and mark them, and then I'll flip it over. Okay, so with the straight edge, I'll check across here, across here, across here. Check it this way, in between each cylinder and on the edges, and then I do an X pattern as well. And then I always take my smallest feeler gauge. It's 1.5 thousandths is what I got. You may have, I think some of them stop at 2 thousandths, I don't know. But you just want to make sure that it doesn't go under. And I already did this. I'm having problems with my camera, so I'm just trying to get this across. You want to make sure that your feeler gauge is, or your straight edge is flat and smooth. You want to take care of your edges because this is a machined edge. You want to make sure that it's in good shape. These aren't that expensive. There's a Fowler one. I think it's a little more expensive, but I know OEM makes one that has one machined edge on it that's fairly affordable. You probably find that on Amazon. I have all the rocker studs installed. They're 5/8 socket, and these are some extra guide plates that I have, but on these guide plates, the factory ones, they actually say down on them, so they go on down, and then the studs go through them, and I put red Loctite on these. Sometimes your stud holes may protrude into your intake valve on some heads, or your intake port on some heads, so you may use a thread sealer. And then I put all these in and I torqued them down to 50 foot-pounds, so they're all good to go. Alright, well, I didn't make my deadline of that Friday that I needed to have the engine done by, because when I got to putting my valve springs in, I didn't realize that this head that I'm currently working on didn't have these valve seats, and I didn't have any, so I had to order some, and I was unable to get any in time, and I had to go away for 2 weeks. So it's now 3 weeks later, and I finally have all the parts that I need after a measurement miscue on my end also. So an important note, if you're checking for valve spring installed height and you have a valve spring height checker, this is the one I have. It's a 4929 comp cams. And it looks like this. It's got your measurement here, and this one is good from 1.6 to 2.2. So basically, as you put this in, you put your valve spring retainer on the top like that, and this goes on your valve seat, you know, with everything in, and you put your keepers in, and then you turn it, and it'll give you your measurement. The thing I didn't realize was this one has a lip here, you can see, and then it also has a lip down here. Well, my valve spring retainer fits in there nice and perfect. Look at that, right in there. Being in a rush, not really thinking about it, I made all my measurements like this. The problem is, you're supposed to make your measurements from this lip, and this is about 135 thousandths difference from here to here. So I set my spring height to 1.75, like that. Well, I got everything put together, put my spring in, I was like, let me check my spring height just to double check. And of course, I had them installed too short. So I had to redo my measurements, and I figured out what I needed. Initially, I had bought a set of valve spring seats that look like this. These are 150 thick, 150 thousandths thick, and I also had bought 20 thousandths shims to put underneath them, because the measurement I came up with told me that I needed 170 thousandths shim underneath it. Well, so this is my shim here. Well, that was completely wrong. The valve spring seats that I actually needed were these. These are 60 thousandths thick. And I still need the 20 thousandths shims, but I also needed plus 50 thousandths keepers So this is the standard keeper. You see how the groove is in the middle there? And this is your plus 50 thousandths keeper. See how the groove's at the bottom? So this adds 50 thousandths of spring height at the top. So when everything's installed, my installed height of my spring from the seat, from the top of the seat to the bottom of the retainer is 1.75, and that's what I need. So with this combination of stuff here, I have my correct installed height and I can assemble these heads. So I'm going to start doing that, and we will see where we're at in a little while. Okay, so I got all my springs in. I gotta do the same thing to the other cylinder head, and then I just gotta finish up a couple things on the bottom end. I'll put the heads on, and we should be ready to go at that point. Alright, so I'm gonna set my depth for my oil pump here. I got my oil pan sitting there. Oil pump here. It's on. It's in place. So typically want about a quarter to a half an inch of clearance between the bottom of your pan and your oil pump. So I'll take my tape measure and measure to this, and I got about 6 5/8, maybe a little bit more than that. So I got about 6 5/8 there from where I'm looking at. No, that looks like 6 3/4. That's straight. Okay. So right here, what does that look like? 6 3/4. Okay. And then if I take this straight edge, right there to the bottom of that, what does that look like? 6 7/8, maybe 6 15/16. So that's about, it's a little bit less than a 1/4 inch gap that's showing me, but with the gasket on here, I should be good. So I'm gonna take this off, and I'm gonna put a tack weld right here just so that doesn't move. I'll mark it with a paint pen real quick. There's my paint pen. So right here, I'll just mark this, and I'll mark that, so that I know that that's straight, and then I can tack that in place so this doesn't move. Alright, I finally got my heads all done. Here they are. I got my valves installed. Well, on this side. I got all my valves installed. These are 194, 150. They're stainless steel valves. They're from Summit Racing. They had a lot of good reviews, so I ordered them. They weren't super expensive, and they went in pretty nice. You just got to make sure that after you lap them, to put a flashlight in here, make sure you can't see any light, and if you do, just pull them out and re-lap them again. Should be good most of the time, but sometimes you may need to go get an actual valve job. But these cleaned up pretty good. New valves, new springs. You can see the springs here. These are able to accept up to 550 lift, which is good because my cam has a 503 lift, and I think it's 495 and 503 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I have the sheet over there, I can look. The guide plates, these are stock guide plates, stock studs, and these are just stock Corvette or ZZ4 heads, and this is a 88 Corvette block, so these heads will go nicely on that block. And then the head gaskets that I got, you can see here, these are marine head gaskets, so they're designed to sustain your temperature better at high RPMs for a prolonged period of time. And they allow the coolant to stay in the heads a little longer with these smaller holes. So that should work out good. I'm going to get these bolted on. I have ARP hardware. I'm going to make sure to put thread sealer on them. I like to use Permatex Forma gasket number 2. I've used it a bunch in the past and it just works for me. If you have something different that you use, put it down in the comments and let me know. Maybe I'll try it out on the next engine I build. But yeah, I'm gonna put these heads on. I'll make sure to torque them all down to the proper spec, which I think I have in that book. So I'll look at that and see what we got. So that book says 65 foot-pounds, but I know that these require a different torque spec, I'm pretty sure. So I'm gonna look and see what these recommend. I know sometimes you gotta kind of use your best judgment which torque spec to use, because the bolts here so this is 70 foot-pounds. So I'm going to do 70 because that's what the bolts recommend. Typically, you don't really want to go over 70 or so, especially with these older blocks, because some of these holes are really thin and they go into the coolant jacket, so you could distort the block. So just be careful of that. But use your best judgment. If you buy a box of studs and it says 90 foot-pounds, obviously that's way too much for this kind of block. But if you're building a different block, read some forums and stuff and see what other people have been doing that have been working for them. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay this up there, get my thread sealer out and start torquing these down. And I'll put this on time lapse so you can watch me do this relatively quickly. So I got these comp cams push rods. They're 7808-16 and they're 7.2 inches long, I believe. Yes, they're stock length for a C4 Corvette engine, L98 with aluminum heads. So the stock length for that. We got these comp cams, steel roller tip rockers. They're 1.52 to 1 rocker arm ratio. So a little bit more than stock, because I think stock's 1.5. But these are good, nice heavy duty steel. It's good for a boat. You don't have to worry about the aluminum wearing out. Okay, so I have my push rods in. I lubricated both ends with engine assembly lube. I lubricated the little ball sockets that go in here with assembly lube, and lubricated the tips of each valve with assembly lube. So now I'm going to set my valve lash And there's many ways that you can do it. You can do it one at a time. That takes forever. You can do TDC, set them all, quarter turn, set them all, quarter turn, set them all. I don't really know how to do that specific way. So what I like to do is I like to do it with 2 turns. So I do TDC cylinder 1, set half of them, TDC cylinder 6, set half of them. And on TDC cylinder 1, you can set both cylinder 1s. You can set the exhaust on cylinder 2, or no, the intake on cylinder 3. Let me rephrase. Both of these, so cylinder 1, both of them. Intake cylinder 2. Exhaust cylinder 3. Intake cylinder 5, it's this one, and intake cylinder 7. And then you can do the exhaust also on 4 and 8. And then when you turn it, you can set the rest of them. I have a chart here that I made that allows me to follow along and be able to do that. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'm just setting 0 lash, so pretty much till the push rod can't go up and down anymore. So like right there. So right there, 0 lash. I can still spin the push rod. Cylinder 1, we'll do intake and the exhaust. I'm going to do this twice just for peace of mind on my end. That actually looks really good on my valve tips. So I'm happy with that. And then, so exhaust cylinder 3. It's this one. Too tight. Still spin that one. We'll do intake cylinder 2. Can't be right. Yeah, it's not right because that's up on the base circle there. It should be exhaust cylinder 2. Did I write that down wrong? I might have wrote that down right. Okay, so I just went through and adjusted all the valves. I didn't like the procedure that I had written down, just based off the way that it was. I didn't like how it was keeping some of these not tight. So I went through my handy How to Rebuild Your Chevy Small Block book, and it has this chart here which tells you which valve to have open or opening, or it says with the valve fully open. So with cylinder 6 intake valve fully open, you adjust cylinder 1 intake valve. And you just go through the list and make sure that everything's good. You can usually do 1 or 2 at a time. I also did, so I did TDC cylinder 1, and I went through and I found whichever one was opening. So like cylinder 2 was fully open on the intake side. So that would be 3 intake I was able to adjust. Which, that looks like that needs a little bit more adjustment. So there you go. That just took care of that. And then also cylinder 8 exhaust is open. So if I look at my chart, cylinder 8 exhaust, I adjust number 5 exhaust. So that's this one. That one's already adjusted. It doesn't need maybe a little bit more, but that's really it. And then I just did that. So I'm gonna go back through and just double check. I'll do another revolution, or another 2 revolutions. So we'll do 90. Check. Another 90. Same thing, check. Yeah, this one's got a little bit of play in it, so we'll adjust that one a little bit. Alright, and another 90. Same thing. The lifters also aren't pumped up, so if you push down on it, you'll see that they move, but I'm pushing up only. Okay. 190. Another 90. see that that's there. That's the number 1 intake. So 6 intake is on its way to being open. Okay. It is much easier to do here than it is in the car or in the boat, which is where this engine's going. So I just want to make sure that I get this right, so I don't have to mess around with it while it's in the boat, or have the guys that put the engine in have to mess around with it. Okay. So we're back to cylinder 1 TDC on your compression stroke. So we should be good there. Okay, so we're going to do the rear main seal. This is the housing that it goes in. Looks like this. It comes with this paper gasket. It's not paper, it's like, I don't know, whatever material, but I like to put some silicone on this gasket first, just a thin layer on both sides to help it stay in place and help it seal better. Also, a thing to note is these 4 bolts are very specific for that rear main seal. It uses this long one, it uses a nut, and then it uses these 2 short ones. So if you lose these, you gotta buy the right ones. So I'm gonna put this silicone on here first. I'm gonna take this. This should slide on. It's not going to. Oh no. What? Alright. So that didn't make any sense. Okay, so that's on there. Now, your long bolt goes through here where the dowel pin is. Your nut goes on this stud over here. And then you got 2 shorter bolts that go here. And then I'm sure the torque spec is pretty low, but let's see what our manual says. I'm seeing about 11-ish foot-pounds, so as long as you don't over tighten them, you should be fine. Okay, so the housing's installed on the back of the block. The new seal came with this install tool, so that should just sit right on there, like that. You should be able to just push it on, get it started. This would definitely be easier if I had a second person here. Okay. I'm using a brass drift to tap it around so it goes in. And then this popped off, so that's good. And I'll just finish. So that's seated on there. It's nice and straight. Seated evenly all the way around. So we should have a nice seal here. It doesn't look like it folded, so that's good. Now I can put the engine back on the engine stand. Alright, so we're going to put the front timing cover on. We got the Velcro gasket. I think it goes on either way. I don't really know. Whichever way it lines up. It lines up both ways, so I'm going to put it this way because why not? Same thing that I did with the rear main seal. I'm going to do here. I'm going to put silicone on both sides of this. Okay, so we got the timing cover put on. I went with the chrome one. I did put a new gasket in it though because I don't know how old this cover is, and my Velcro kit came with a good quality gasket, so I put that in the cover instead of the one that was in it. I have a one-piece oil pan seal, so I'm going to put that on. You just want to make sure, I like to do this just for my peace of mind. I like to put silicone right here where the rear main seal housing meets the block, and then also up here in the corner where your timing cover meets the block. So like where the U-shaped part is on that, it's like right in that corner. As you can see right here, I put a tack weld on here so my oil pickup won't move. I already set the height on it, so that'll be all good. And I can put the pan on, tighten it down with my new hardware that I got. Alright, so I'm going to put my harmonic balancer on. Painted it yesterday. It's right here. It's nice and painted. I got my harmonic balancer installer. I have the harmonic balancer installer tool. This will screw in here. Just needs to go in enough so that you can use the rest of the tool. The tool screws on to the adapter, and then this knurled piece locks it in, so then that acts as one piece. Now the next step is take my harmonic balancer that's been freshly repainted. I'm gonna take some grease and put this on. It's only going to go on so far by hand, and then take your tool. So I'm not sure if this is 100% the right way to use this, but I always put this part on towards the balancer and this part towards the nut, because if you do it the other way, this will rub, because you see how it like moves. So I always do it this way. I think it's right. The instructions aren't very clear that came with this one, so just use your best judgment when using a tool like this. Okay, so then I have, find a wrench for that. Okay, so you get a wrench on here to hold this in place, and then you take your other wrench and you put it on here. And you want to bring it in bring it in slowly. Well, it's going to be a slow process because it's a lot of turning, but basically you want to bring it in till your wear marks are in and it's fully seated. So you want it to fully seat against the crank sprocket. Let me get you in here a little closer. I don't know if you can see that good. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that's good. All right. So basically this is going to go all the way in and it'll seat against the crank timing chain sprocket. You want to make sure that everything's all good. Don't knock the camera over. Having a tool like this is very important if you're doing a lot of these. You could try heating it and pushing it on that way, but I haven't really found that to be super successful. This is really the best way to do it. Pretty much all the way in there, I think. So I think that's all the way in, so I'll pull that out. These bolts, they sell them at Advanced and everywhere. It's the Spectre 4699. It's a new bolt with the nice washer and everything. I always get these, not always this specific one, but I always get a new bolt when I put these on, just because it doesn't hurt to have a new bolt on there. Yeah, because this one's all chewed up and nasty looking, and then you get this nice new bolt. It's got the bigger head on it. Yeah, it comes with this lock washer too, which okay, it's the next day, and I got my oil pan gasket. Ordered this Felpro Marine oil pan gasket. There's your part number, 17982. I looked it up by 88 Corvette, and that's what it told me to get, so that's what I ordered. Flip this over. Pull these couple of bolts out that I had here. Take this off, hopefully for the last time. We got a new rag. I got a new rag. I'm gonna just re-wipe down the surfaces here. Both sides, make sure they're nice and clean, no oil. Get all that stuff out of there. Alright. So we got our gasket. This is a thick front, so and it goes on this way, so it should fit. Fits right there. Good stuff. All right. All right. Now before I put the pan on, I'm going to take this back off for a second, and I'm going to get my silicone. Break my oil pan while I'm at it. So I got my silicone. I'm going to put a dab in this corner and a dab in this corner, and also here and here. I'll lay that on. And it looks like that's going to fit on there nice. Start putting our bolts in. All right, so we got our engine complete. It's not going in the boat for a couple of months, so I think I'm going to plan to start it up on the stand in the next couple of weeks. I have an intake manifold, a carburetor, everything I need to run. I got a set of long tube headers laying around, so I'm gonna gather all that stuff and I'll show you guys running this thing on the stand. I'll do the break-in, or I'll do like a quick break-in on it. It doesn't need a full like 20-minute run time like your flat tappet cam normally would. So I'm just gonna do a run, get it hot up to temp, and then let it idle for a little bit, change the oil, and it'll be ready to go. And then once it's in the boat, we can run it for a little while, maybe put like, I don't know, 10 or 20 hours on it, and then change oil again. Probably after 10 hours, change oil again, just for safe measure, because new oil never hurt anything. But yeah, for now, I'm just gonna clean up the garage, put this off to the side, and we'll get ready to run it. So in the meantime, I'm Nick. Get out and wrench.